Hello, everyone. My name is Kelsey Thompson. I am the Associate Director of the IUP Career and Professional Development Center. And for this week's presentation, we are talking all about networking. So throughout the course of the next 15 to 30 minutes, however long I decide to chat about this topic, I am going to cover the definition. So we'll start off by defining networking. I have an activity for everyone to do, and then we'll end by going over 5 tips that I have to help make you a master networker and how to network effectively. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so as promised, we are going to start off by defining what networking really means. So, networking is defined as interacting with other people to exchange information and develop contacts, especially to further one's career. So, oftentimes we talk about networking when we're discussing someone's own career and professional development. I always joke that in career services, we kind of sound like a broken record because we talk about networking and how valuable it is, but I do still think there are a lot of misconceptions as to what networking really means. Networking is all about developing relationships. It's about meeting and connecting with people to maybe get career advice, learn about opportunities. It's not just randomly and aimlessly collecting business cards. It's not trying to work a room to make sure that we've talked to every single person but haven't had an actual in-depth conversation. And it's certainly not just going up to someone, introducing yourself, and asking for a job. Really, like I said, networking at its core is about developing meaningful relationships. And then over time, asking for advice and potentially learning about job opportunities can happen. So on the screen, you'll see networking spectrum activity. So this is the part in the presentation here where I have everyone that's viewing take part in a fun little activity that will get you thinking on where you fall when it comes to networking. Are you someone that feels really comfortable networking? This is really where you thrive. Or are you someone who networking is a little bit out of my comfort zone? I know I have to do it, but it's not something I would necessarily choose to do. So on the next couple of screens, I'll have some questions that'll pop up. I'd like you to either jot some notes down or make a mental note as to where you kind of fall in terms of the spectrum. Are we on the one end where we love networking, or are we on the other end where networking is maybe not our favorite thing? So the first question we have is, do you prefer to network alone or with someone else? So if we're going to a networking event, are you someone who likes to just kind of tackle that by themselves, go up and make those connections one-on-one, or would you prefer to maybe go to a networking event with a group of people? Would that make it a little bit more comfortable and less intimidating for you? The next question is, do you prefer one-on-one conversations at a networking event? Or are you someone that thrives in more of a large event where there's a lot of people, there's maybe more group conversations versus just those intimate one-on-one interactions? Next question. I am able to make small talk with ease. Is this true or false? So, the art of small talk can be difficult for some people. Do you find that when you have to make small talk, it's pretty simple and easy for you to do so, or do you kind of dread having to make small talk? So, true or false? Where do you think you fall with this question? Okay, our next question. Do you need to prepare to feel comfortable, or are you going to wing it? So, some people, when it comes to networking, they might prepare some questions and topics to discuss when it comes to small talk. They might practice their elevator speech. If they're able to view the guest list beforehand, they might do some research so they know who they are talking to and what they might bring up in a conversation. Or are you someone that just thinks, you know what, I'm just going to go in and wing it and meet people and see what happens? Next question. Okay. So, are you someone that will target intentional networking events, or will you just go to any event and network? Make it your own networking event. So, through our office, as well as the Office of Alumni and Friends, we try to offer various networking opportunities throughout the academic year. So, definitely keep your eyes peeled for those. Those would be a very definite intentional networking event. We're inviting employers and alumni and students for the sole purpose of engaging in conversation and networking. The other part of this question talks about just going to any event and networking. So that could be going to a sporting event, it could be in the grocery store. Just those situations that you find yourself in, you can really network just about anywhere. So, are you someone that will go to those specific events, or are you just going to make any event a networking event? Okay, so hopefully those questions and those prompts got you thinking as to where you fall in terms of the networking spectrum, being very comfortable networking or maybe being a little bit uncomfortable. We're going to move on and discuss in a little bit more detail what networking allows you to do. So, as I've mentioned, networking really allows you to develop relationships and grow your professional contacts. We oftentimes talk about networking when we're discussing one's career development and professional development, searching for jobs, seeking out those opportunities, and that's where networking can become very valuable. It also allows you to share ideas. This is one of the reasons I really like networking. I know personally, when I've been with other colleagues in my field, one of the most beneficial results of those conversations and those networking interactions are the ideas that are shared. I'm able to hear what other people are doing and then take that back to my office and potentially adopt that as well. Networking certainly also allows you to potentially further your career. So, we'll talk in a slide or two here about the hidden job market. It's a great way to meet people and maybe learn about those career opportunities that aren't widely posted on job boards. And networking, we might not think about this, but it allows you to improve your communication skills. So, we know that communication skills are one of the top soft skills that are sought by employers industry wide. So, when you're forced to go to networking events or engage in these conversations, it really makes you improve your communication skills. You have to know how to talk effectively, whether it be one on one or in a large group. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. So, I know personally, the more I've had to go to networking events and engage in those conversations, I've really then seen in my work and the things that I'm doing in the office, my communication skills have improved. So that's something you might not think about, but networking certainly helps you to improve those communication skills, which we know are vital. So networking really happens in this sweet spot in the middle here that you see the arrow pointing to. So we've talked about how it's really just relationship building. Networking involves meeting people, which I tend to think is the easy part. It's easy to meet people. And then it's about building relationships. So engaging in conversation, making those connections, building that relationship takes some time. And then it's really about maintaining the relationship. So, getting that person's contact information, connecting with them on LinkedIn, potentially reaching out to them. Maybe it's through email, or maybe you reach out for a coffee date at some point. Continuing that relationship over time, that's really where you close the circle with networking. So, you start by meeting people, you build that relationship, and then you maintain that relationship through frequent communication. And that's networking at its core. When you have that relationship that's built, if you need to reach out for career advice or if you're asking about a position with their company, it's not going to be random or forced. You've built that relationship and it's something that would be very natural to reach out and inquire about. On the screen, you'll see some statistics. I'm not going to read through all of them. You certainly can pause this presentation and read over them. But really, what we're trying to drive home here is that networking works. So we're not just a broken record at the Career Center when we're talking about making sure that you're networking and using your time at IUP to develop those relationships. Networking really is a valuable career and job search strategy. So 70% of people in a study that we found in 2016 were hired at a company where they had a connection. So they knew someone at the company that they were hired. 80% of professionals consider networking to be important to their career success. And I think this is really important to touch upon. Networking isn't just something that you do when you're searching for a job, it's something that you should continue to do throughout the course of your career. And 35% of surveyed professionals say that a casual conversation on LinkedIn led to a new opportunity. So, LinkedIn is a great way to network virtually, especially given the state that we're all in now, having to work and learn from home. Having a strong LinkedIn presence is really helpful because you're able to continue to network, reach out to people, and develop those meaningful relationships just in an online platform. And you never know where that casual conversation may go to. I know we had a student a few semesters back who reached out to an alum on LinkedIn. They had a casual conversation, communicated throughout the course of a year, and when it came time to graduate, he was able to learn about a position in her organization. He applied and then had a job already lined up when he was graduating, which is a really great position to be in. So keep that in mind. If you have a LinkedIn profile or if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, that's certainly something that our office can help you to build, develop, and maintain. So on the screen, these are some terms that you should know when we're talking about networking. So I'm going to quickly go over all of them. The hidden job market is what we talk about when we're discussing jobs that aren't necessarily posted to large job boards or to HR websites. The only way you would find out about these opportunities is about connecting with others in the organization. So they're not those ones that are really readily accessible. It's really where networking can come in handy because you can learn about these potentially hidden jobs. Professional associations are an organization with members dedicated to educating and networking within a particular field. So I would strongly encourage anyone that has not joined a professional organization or association within their industry to do so. Look and see what associations are available and make contact with them, reach out, start to engage as a member. It's a great way to share ideas, learn industry trends, and potentially find out about job opportunities. Conferences are another great way to network. So these are going to be formal events where professionals in an industry come together. They maybe will talk about new directions, practices, research, and it's going to be a group of people all in the same industry. So it's a great kind of one-stop shop for learning and networking. And then alumni events. I talked about this in a few slides back where I shared that our Office of Alumni and Friends regularly holds networking events, as does our office at the Career Center. And these are those intentional networking events where we're inviting alumni and students to interact and start to build those relationships. So now that we've spent some time defining networking, talking about some terms that you should know, I want to focus on 5 tips to really network effectively, and hopefully if you implement these, you will be a mastered networker. So the first networking tip is to really just use your connections. So when you think about all of the people that you know, and then you think about all of the people that they know, and then the people that they know, pretty soon you have this huge connection base that you didn't even maybe realize you had. It's not really going about and developing new contacts. You're just really using the connections that you already have at your disposal. So really giving some thought to the people that you're already connected with, that you can reach out and develop relationships with, seek advice. Maybe you ask about a job opportunity, you say that you're looking, you're getting ready to graduate, kind of pull your own connections to see what opportunities might be available. That's a great networking tip. It's not necessarily always about going out and making new connections. It's just using the connections that you already have at your disposal. Networking tip number 2, this is really important. So practice your elevator speech and your handshake. So your elevator speech is how we define it, is your 30 to 60-second spiel about who you are, what you've done, and what you hope to accomplish. So it's a quick snippet that would give someone that you're just meeting a good indication of who you are and maybe what you're looking for. An elevator speech comes in really handy at networking events when you're walking up and making that initial introduction, or at a career fair when you're walking up to a booth and introducing yourself to a recruiter. It's a great way to start the conversation, and then you can naturally let the conversation progress from there. This is something that you can definitely practice. It's something that I recommend kind of having rehearsed, and you can literally, or figuratively pull it out of your back pocket when you're at these events so that you're making a really strong introduction. Your handshake is also really important. So this goes back to first impressions. First impressions are vital. Within the first 7 seconds of meeting another person, whether we realize it or not, we're judging them. And so part of that involves maybe your elevator speech, are you smiling, how you're dressed, and your handshake. So you want your handshake to be firm but not too firm, about 3 pumps, making sure you're looking that other person in the eye. Those are some things to kind of focus on, and repeating the person's name back to them. So if the person says to you, "Hi, my name is Kelsey, it's so nice to meet you," have a firm handshake, 3 pumps, good eye contact. "Hi, Kelsey, it's really nice to meet you." Networking tip number 3, always be appropriately bold and authentic. So the term appropriately bold, I like to credit to our director, Dr. Tammy Manko. She uses this, and I think it comes in really handy when talking about networking. So when you're at a networking event, you have to realize that there are going to be some people who are very comfortable, they thrive in that setting, and then there's going to be others who are really uncomfortable, and probably some people in the middle. So when you're at these type of events and social gatherings, you have to have an appropriate level of boldness to be comfortable to go up, make those connections, develop those relationships. It might not be comfortable at first. You're probably going to walk up and introduce yourself to people that you don't know. So you have to have that appropriate level of boldness to come across confident and as though you want to engage in a conversation with that person. You also want to be authentic, and I think this is really important. When we talk about networking, sometimes I think people assume they have to be fake or put on a show and be super professional and they can't let their personality come through. While you want to be professional, there are certainly some things and some topics you probably should avoid. You also want to be yourself. You can crack an appropriate joke, smile, laugh, show who you really are. I know that when I'm in an event that's maybe focused on networking or I'm with a large group of people, I gravitate towards those that are really just being themselves. They're very genuine, they're authentic, they're real, they're not there with any hidden agenda. Those are the type of people that you find others gather around. So remember to always be appropriately bold and authentic. Some conversation tips. So, at a networking event, you are definitely going to have to engage in some conversation. So, some things to keep in mind: always focus and maintain good eye contact. Try to introduce a new topic when there is a lull in the conversation. When doing so, try to make sure that you're asking open-ended questions versus close-ended or yes or no questions so that the conversation can continue. And overall, try to keep it cheerful, pleasant, and polite. When it comes to being a good conversationalist, the first piece of that is to really be a good listener. People like to talk about themselves, they share their successes, they like to be listened to. So that's why it's really important to be a good listener. So asking those questions, but also letting people talk about themselves. That's really important. It's also nice to have a good sense of humor. So it goes back to being genuine and authentic. Cracking an appropriate joke, making people laugh, that's really a great way to be a good conversationalist, having that humor. Also keeping in mind, there are certain situations where it might not be appropriate, so you definitely have to read the room. But overall, having a good sense of humor is important as well. Okay, back to networking tip number 4, staying mindful of body language. So last week we talked about body language in our workshop series, so hopefully everyone is well versed as to body language do's and don'ts. But when it comes to networking, it's really important to be mindful of our own body language. So are we smiling? Smiling is really important. So it's really helpful if you're at an event to make sure you are smiling versus having what we're going to call resting mad face. It might have you look unapproachable or like you're disengaged, where you really just might be a little nervous, but it's coming across totally differently. You also want to make sure that you have an open posture, you're not crossing your legs, and you're making good eye contact to everyone that you're speaking with. And networking tip number 5, stay in touch. So this goes back to, meeting people, developing the relationship, and then maintaining the relationship. You want to make sure that when you're meeting new people, that you're continuing to stay in touch with them. So whether that be getting an email address, a phone number, connecting with them on LinkedIn, having a way that you can continue the conversation is very key. And a good rule of thumb is if you're at a networking event, this is specifically for an intentional networking event. You might not do this if you just meet someone at a sporting event or at maybe a theater production, although that certainly could happen as well. But if you're at a networking event and you make some really great connections, you have good conversations, you have their contact information, it's a really nice gesture to send a thank you note. So whether that be an email, a LinkedIn message, or a handwritten thank you note, just thank them for their time. I've been at a couple networking events where I've had students send me a note and just say, it was really nice to meet you. I loved getting to talk with you. I hope we can continue to connect in the future. And it took probably less than 5 minutes to send, but it was really thoughtful and definitely made an impact. So make sure that if you're at a networking event, to send a follow-up thank you and just let that person know that you appreciated the time they spent getting to know you. All right, so I know we covered a lot of information in a short amount of time. If you do still have further questions about networking or really any career related topic, please feel free to reach out to our department. I would strongly encourage anyone that's watching this to visit our website, www.iup.edu/career, or follow us on social media. We have a lot of great content going out daily that can really help you as you are working and learning from home to make sure that you are still on track with your own career and professional development. Thanks so much for tuning in.